Hello and welcome to the first episode of The Devil is a Podcaster. And it's going to be just me today, just rambling on about stuff off script. Unfortunately, I shouldn't do that because I will always screw up. So, I'm going to go live on Twitter just to get my friends in on this. Just give me a second. So I'm just going to talk about random stuff, such as the Death Note film, which the first trailer debuted yesterday. We had a teaser before that, which didn't give us much. And this trailer, surprisingly, was puzzling. That's all I can say. What now? Shouldn't be doing this at the same time. Alright, the Death Note film, there's been a lot of backlash behind this. And I mean, I'm one of those people that will wait and see when the film releases. As far as I'm aware, there's a lot of people confused, and Netflix is not helping at all with the confusion of, is this a television series or a a film itself, which I am almost 90% positive it's just a film. And there's been a lot, like I said, there's a lot of backlash coming behind this film due to the Americanizing and localization of the film regarding Light, not Yagami anymore, it's Turner now, Light Turner, and L, with the, mainly L, because I've seen a lot of racism against the actor, I don't know the gentleman's name, and oddly enough, I don't want to sound racist at all, but I mean, I am not fully against other actors playing characters of different ethnicity or different skin colors. I mean, I know there was a lot of backlash with the new Dark Tower film with Idris Elba playing the Black Gunslinger, which I haven't read the books, but from what I heard, there was a specific storyline in the Dark Tower where now the storyline wouldn't even work, and I heard a lot of the fans were very upset by that. But with the casting of the gentleman who's playing L, I was going to wait and see, but with the trailer, it's not getting my hopes up for this. And because his mannerisms, he's got the seating down, and he's got some of the idle tone of his voice down. However, later on in the trailer, it seemed like he was, well, I've never seen L really get angry. And maybe this could be just a new take on it. Like I said, we'll just have to wait and see. But this new take on L just doesn't seem like the character. And I know a lot of, when the movie comes out, people are gonna, if people don't like it, they're gonna just say you're racist, and I don't think that's the case. And that's a similar thing that would happen with Ghostbusters, the 2015-2016 Ghostbusters film, where there was so much quote unquote controversy due to them just being females, and I personally didn't like the film, and it wasn't because of them. It was because the script was shit, and if you thought it was fine, that is more power to you. And that you're entitled to your opinion. But I thought it was shit, and that's just my opinion. But with this, the mannerisms of L just doesn't seem right for this Death Note film. I don't know, it might work in the context of the story, but it just is uncharacteristic of L. And since they're going for the gothic, emo, bullied kid angle for Light, and I don't know how I feel about that, because that's, as people who have read the manga and seen the anime, that's not Light's characteristics. He's a drop dead gorgeous looking guy who is the top of his class, and no girl can resist him, and yet he can make anyone trust him. This just looks like he's an emo delinquent who's become power hungry, and it's just completely against what Light's character is. But and a lot of people are just going to write off and not see the movie. If you got a Netflix account, you have no real excuse to not see the movie. And just writing it off because it's a live action adaptation is inexcusable. And, in my opinion, idiotic. So, we're going to see that whenever it comes out. So, we're just all going to have to see. We're going to have to wait and voice our opinions after we see the film. Because if it's a bad film, it's a bad film. We just need to judge it as a film. Okay. Now, let me go into what I know a lot of people out there haven't been able to get their hands on a Nintendo Switch. And I'm just switching gears for a second to gaming. I, fortunately, have been able to get one. And that was just out of pure shit luck. And unfortunately, people have heard about the hardware shortages and the parts, and it's just hectic for anyone to get a hold of one, and it's next to impossible. I was lucky enough to get one whenever I called like four GameStops, 3 Walmarts, and luckily when I woke up one morning, my first instinct was to call one of these Walmarts, and they had 2. And I'm rushed down there. It took me about an hour to get there, and thankfully they weren't sold out. And they were wondering how I got there, and luckily they had a stock checker online. And I know a lot of people have seen reviews on the Nintendo Switch, and I haven't owned a Nintendo console personally since the Nintendo GameCube. And because that was the first my console I bought with my own money. And my first console was a Super Nintendo. And I didn't get into the Nintendo 64. And then I skipped that and went on into the GameCube. And I played a Wii. I thought it was just too casual, in my personal opinion. I didn't get a Wii U, and God, there's so many people that didn't get a Wii U. And I can see a lot of people were confused, and I watched the E3 announcement video all those years ago. And when they say, play it new with a new controller, experience new experiences with the new controller, they were all they were advertising was the new controller. But we barely even saw the console, which led people to believe that this was an add-on for the Wii. And I don't blame them. I can see that. I can see why people were confused. I knew people personally that thought it was just an add-on to a Wii, because I asked them, why don't you get a Wii U? They said, I don't know. Because I don't want a... I've already got a Wii, and I don't play it anymore. And I told them, that's a new console. And they were just flabbergasted. Also, shifting gears again. There's my notes. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Side of the Dimensions. Now, I've been looking forward to this film for a long, long time. I remember 2 years ago when they announced that the original manga artist was in charge of the story, the character designs, and when I saw a couple of the concept arts, I was really interested in the film. I was wondering where they could go. I've been waiting a long time for them to make a continuation of the original anime and manga, because I like Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. I really do. It's one of my favorite spin-offs and one of my favorite animes all time. And Jaden Yuki as a protagonist was very good. And 5Ds was alright. I know a lot of people love 5Ds. I personally didn't really get into it. And then we get with GX and 5Ds, and we get into all of this conundrum with 4Kids and the fact that the final season of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX was never aired in America, dubbed. And then you get into 5Ds, they had like 2 episodes of the 4th season, cut in with the 3rd season, and half the 3rd season was gone. And then just to get Zexel or Zeal out the door. And I watched 1 episode of Zexel, and I couldn't stand it. I can't even remember the protagonist's name, but I do remember the catchphrase of "Feel the flow," and I just couldn't. I couldn't stand it. They were just digging at the bottom of the barrel, I thought, in order to make a catchphrase. Like with Yugi's like, "It's time to duel!" Or the "Get Your Game On" with Jaden. And Yusei was fine, but and then when I skipped over Zexel, I went into Arc 5, and surprisingly, it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I saw it with the kitty animation and the opening on the Yu-Gi-Oh website, and I thought, my God, they've screwed it up again. But when I went into the show, it seemed very, very, it seemed to have more heart than the previous Zexel, and I'm glad they did. And for everyone on Twitter that's doesn't see my face and I'm just recording the audio, I'm just wanting to do it like this. So it's not against you guys, and there's nothing wrong with my phone. I'm just letting you guys know. But with Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Side of Dimensions, I was afraid that they were going to try and dumb it down for the masses, the kids, but most of the people that were Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans in the 90s, and I didn't become a Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan until 1999, I think. And I found it out through a McDonald's Happy Meal, and I got my first 2 cards out of there. And I thought to myself, what is this? People were into Pokemon. I don't know. I just never got into Pokemon at all. And I hope everyone on Twitter can hear me all right, because I have my phone right there. And I questioned, what are these cards? And I went on, and some people told me about the show, so I went on and watched the show on Saturday mornings on Jetix. God, those were the days. And I fell in love with the show. I loved the show. I didn't get to watch. I stopped watching after Battle City. And that's where my Yu-Gi-Oh! Knowledge ended. Until about 3 or 4 years ago, when I picked it up again and started watching again. Because after a while, throughout my high school career, I was making fun of anime. I made fun of Pokemon. I made fun of manga. I thought this was stupid. I thought it was kid stuff. And when I saw Full Metal Alchemist's pictures, I saw Cowboy Bebop, it was Inuyasha, etc., Pokemon. I thought it was just for kids. And that was my mindset, because most people who liked it were getting bullied in high school. And although I didn't bully anyone, I did come out and say, this is stupid, this is just for kids. Until I gave it a watch again. And I gave it another chance. Then it was like diving headfirst into the ocean. And the ocean being anime. And most of my family and friends say I become too obsessed with it. And my excuse is, trust me, there are more people more obsessed with it than I. But when it comes to the Dark Side of the Dimensions, it was a fantastic film, in my personal opinion. It wasn't dumbed down at all, and I was glad to see Eric Stewart and Dan Green back in the roles that they made famous. And it was very thoughtful. The story was very welcome. And there's this, and if you didn't like the film, but you want to see more, if you were always wanting that 6th season of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, the closest thing you can get is this fan fiction that I had been reading. It was, it's called Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 6. If you look it up on Google, you'll be able to find it. You can watch it on, read it on Wattpad. It's a 27 chapter story dealing with Yugi about 5 years after the ending of the anime, and he comes back from college, and they finally try to develop Yugi and Anzu or Taya, and they finally a lot of people go into fan fiction think it's just porn, and God knows I've seen that. Because I had a friend that wanted to read some fairy tale fan fiction, and I warned them that 99% of it is porn. And I'm sure that those aren't the actual estimates, but you get what I'm saying. And he went into a public library, and it had pictures to it, apparently, and he went into a public library and pulled up the fairy tale fan fiction. Thankfully, I wasn't with him when it happened, and he surprisingly read through the entire story with the pictures and all, and somehow didn't get caught. And he said he was disturbed, and I asked him, why did you read it then? He said, if I'm going to start something, I'm going to finish it. But I said, but it still doesn't excuse you reading basically porn inside a public library surrounded by old ladies who could probably get a heart attack if they saw what you were reading. But this fan fiction, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 6 fan fiction, was, in my opinion, the Season 6 that never happened. And it was such a good story. I don't really read that much, but when I read this, I've never got a tear from a story until I read this. It was so heartfelt and so intricately written, and it was written like an actual episode of the show. And there are just so many things explored, and then they finally, at the end of the story, it comes together in one great package to tie off the series until you see Yugi in GX. But I give Dark Side of the Dimensions a B+ out of 10. I mean, the only issue that I had with it somewhat was that it was slow in certain areas, but once they get into the dueling, it's just go, 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 go. A lot of it doesn't make sense, and of course, it's a movie. It's also based off the anime, so they're not going to follow the rules of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game. We can expect that by now. And then if you go in there expecting them to follow the rules, you are going to be heavily disappointed, and you won't be able to watch the movie, and you're going to have a terrible experience. But if you go into it wanting to be entertained, wanting to see more of the story, see more of Yugi's development, and that is the one thing that this movie did well. The development of the Yugi character. Most of the people always, when they think of Yu-Gi-Oh!, they think of a Tim and his deep voice. But Yugi is part of a Tim, and vice versa with a Tim. But it's just the development of his character into being a more independent person, that he can duel on his own, he can take care of himself. He doesn't need a Tim, but he misses a Tim. But that's not really a spoiler of the film. Most of you have seen it. I'm sure those of you who haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking it out. And because it released on Blu-ray and DVD on Tuesday. Alright, let's see. Let's talk about some live-action adaptations of anime. Now, there's a lot of people that are heavily against this, and I am somewhat against it, because there are some stories that can't be told within live-action spaces, because you're kind of restricted in live-action. Whereas on paper, your mind can be set free and can flow freely. And apparently there's a Cowboy Bebop TV show in production right now, from what I heard about 2 weeks ago. The Cowboy, I don't know anything about any details about the show other than that it's happening. Who knows? It may never even get off the ground. But one anime adaptation that did get off the ground and was already been in theaters was the Ghost in the Shell adaptation. And a lot of people, there's been really mixed reactions from it. It's surefire better than Dragon Ball Evolution. That's not really a compliment, but it's really not hard. Anything can beat Dragon Ball Evolution. But this was actually a decent film, and is as close to the Ghost in the Shell film from the 90s that you can get, in my personal opinion. And if you don't agree with that, that's your opinion. But that got off the ground. It didn't make that much money, and I don't think they were going to make a sequel, to my knowledge. But unfortunately, Avi Arad, the producer of Ghost in the Shell, has got several more films in production based off of anime. He's got a Bleach film in production and a Naruto film adaptation in production. And I think there's several more. I think they got a Tokyo Ghoul. I don't know, actually. But I know there's a Tokyo Ghoul Chinese, Japanese live-action film that's been all over the place lately. I don't know how it is. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen the trailer to it. I've only seen the teaser. And speaking of Chinese, Japanese live-action adaptations of manga and anime, let's talk about Full Metal Alchemist. We had a short trailer a few months ago, and a lot of people liked it, a lot of people hated it, and I was on the fence of liking it. A lot of people said it looked worse than Attack on Titan, and in my defense, I actually liked the Attack on Titan films. I actually watched the films before I saw the anime. I know, blasphemy, but that's the way it went for me. So I wasn't as disappointed with the films as if I would have been if I've seen the anime before I saw the films. But I can see what drew people off with the Attack on Titan live-action films, due to Misa's character and Aaron's motivations, and which were done better in the anime. But the Full Metal Alchemist, it's got the look. Alphonse looks fine. The Italian, Europe, Germany style that was in the anime and in Brotherhood seems to be there. I'm not trying to be racist, but I know a lot of people consider if they play by a white actor in an anime is whitewashing. And I don't consider it whitewashing if it's supposed to be a German or if it's supposed to be a white character. Like with Full Metal Alchemist, Edward and Alphonse are supposed to be German. I think. Pretty sure. They're supposed to be German, and yet they got the Chinese people, which I'm not fully against if it is done well. And I don't know. I haven't seen much footage of the guy that's playing Edward. But as far as I'm aware, it's the only thing they're somehow going to fit the entire story into 2.5 hours. I don't know the runtime, but from what I heard, it's not going to be a parter film. It's just going to be one film telling the story of the Elrics from beginning to end. And I don't see how that's possible without really cutting out a lot of the story and cramping it and making the film feel bloated. The last film that I can think of that kind of did that, it wasn't even an anime film, it was Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. The theatrical cut was bloated because they try to compact so much shit into one little package and then shove it out to us in the audience and get us all confused. And whenever the Ultimate Edition came out with the 30 minutes extra, then it somewhat made sense. And I hope they don't blow out the Full Metal Alchemist film. I really don't. But we're just going to have to see when the film releases, and odds are we won't get it in America for a little while, because although I haven't had to experience a drought in between seasons like a lot of people have over the years, but for this, I have been waiting a while for a live-action adaptation of the film. And a lot of people will say, why make a live-action adaptation when you have the anime? Well, here's the thing. We have the anime. We always have the anime. There's nothing they can take away from us. Even if it's shit, even if the film, and this goes for any anime film, if it sucks, if the film sucks, we will still have the anime and the manga. They can't take that away from us. If you were soured by the Ghost in the Shell movie, go back and watch the 90s movie. Go back and watch Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence, which is not as good as the first one by any means, but it was still a fantastic film in my opinion for the eye. It was a very artistic film, as the Ghost in the Shell movies and shows have been. And a lot of people have been saying they've been having issues finding the Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence, and there's a lot of, that's true. It was true until February of this year when Funimation released a Blu-ray DVD digital HD combo pack, and you can go buy it on their store for about $20, unless you really want to spend a lot of money and track down the original Manga Entertainment DreamWorks version. Then you're going to be spending a pretty penny at about maybe $250 to $200 range. And that's a big range, but I've seen them go for $200. I've seen them sometimes go for $60 to $50 at the lowest, and that's been very, very rare. But Ghost in the Shell... I get so detailed into what I'm talking about, I lost my place. The Ghost in the... shit. This is why I need to go off a script. And not just wing it and improv like I'm doing right now. So, let's see. When it comes to live action adaptations, we will always have the manga, and we'll always have the anime. So, there we go. Just give the movies a chance. That's all you need to do. If you're one of those people that writes off a movie just because, it's based on, they didn't follow the manga right. How do you know you haven't seen the film? It's just, I don't want to see it because they made a live action adaptation. That's like saying you're not going to go see a Marvel film just because because they based it off a freaking comic book. It doesn't make any sense. Anime films can do well if they got some heart put into it. And a lot of the films haven't. In my opinion, Ghost in the Shell had a lot of heart. And that was the first really well done anime film. And the only films that I think that can't even get off the ground are video game adaptations. And granted, we've had some decent ones. Warcraft last year, and I know a lot of people hated this film. Assassin's Creed, I liked the film, I really did. I don't see the real hate behind it. And those were the first two video game adaptations that were decent. We haven't had a legendary film that was based off a video game that I'm aware of. But we'll see in the future, because apparently there's no Warcraft 2 in production. They've gone silent about the Assassin's Creed sequel. As far as I'm aware, Michael Fassbender is supposed to be returning. And we'll see what happens in the future, because apparently the Splinter Cell, they got several other films in production from Ubisoft Motion Pictures, such as Splinter Cell, Watch Dogs, Ghost Recon Wildlands, and what is this other one? I think they may have another Prince of Persia in production. I'm not 100% certain. But, well, I hope you all have enjoyed your time listening to this, and I've had to make this relatively short because I know podcasts can go along for 50 to 2 hours. I've seen them go to 5 hours. This is just me rambling on about shit that I've seen and just wanted to just talk about. And next time, if there's a next time, if people want to hear more of me talking, and I can try and get some people on. But thank you all for listening, and thank you all to my Twitter followers. Love you all. Love you guys. All right, see y'all later. Shit.